What's up YouTube, it's your main man AB the Hero back again with another video. And your boy Matt Barnes says that Lavar Ball is ruining or on the way to ruining his boys' careers. So last week Matt Barnes was on Speak for Yourself, and like a lot of sports shows last week, tons of them talked about the situation with the big baller brand LaMelo Ball, especially him announcing he will be foregoing college and playing basketball professionally overseas during his 1 year off. Matt Barnes here made some headlines with some of his comments because a lot of it seemed like it was extremely opinionated, and for a lot of people felt like it was harsh. So a lot of folks attacked him and came at him on Twitter, and I will give credit to Matt Barnes. He responded to a lot of those tweets, and then he also had some great points, but I felt like his arguments were valid in some areas, but in some areas just kind of missed the mark. To me, his arguments showed just like if you were trying to do what everybody else does, then like you follow the Matt Barnes strategy. If you're trying to paint a new picture or create a new lane, then like you wouldn't do what he's talking about. So what I want to do is go through this video with Matt Barnes on Speak for Yourself. We'll go through it and I'll give you some of my comments. Let's do it.
I mean, I love the whole, first and foremost, with how you guys just closed the last thing, the fact that he's in their lives, a black father in his lives, can do, helping his sons. But that's where it stops for me, because I think he completely ruined, or on the way to ruining too. Luckily Zoe is finally breaking free of his dad and going with his own different shoe brand, covering up the tattoos. But what he did to his middle son at UCLA, pulling him out of UCLA instead of making him sit there and take his punishment for stealing.
First, I want to say that the idea of like, I'm happy to see him cover up the tattoo and distance himself from his family brand, to me is one that I can't get behind. Now, I think that if he would have made a point to say it's unfortunate of what happened to their family and them being able to bounce back and do something different, him having the ability to do that is a positive that he can continue to move forward. I think that that would be a more stronger point.
Stealing, which we could have been back and playing at UCLA and working towards whatever he was working towards. But then the youngest one.
I will say that it does suck, the situation with Jello. I think the tough part about it is he was intending on being one and done anyway. So it's the same thing. If you're going to be one and done, then like if you feel like you're going to be one and done regardless, then like sitting in a chair for a year and then coming back for a second year is not in line with the plan. All right, so yes, I agree that I feel like it could have been an option for him to sit and chill and then come back a second year. I think that that's a valid point, but it's just like I was saying earlier, is that if you have a strategy and a plan in place and something happens to derail you from that plan, and then you just decide, all right, well, we done, we're just gonna sit here and not do it. Or you can decide, hey, we're gonna try something else. We're going to continue to blaze a path. I feel like that's what they chose. Only time will tell if that was the right decision.
Melo's very talented. Like you said, he's his dad robbed him of his high school experience. So he, instead of winning a state championship, a couple weeks ago and playing in the McDonald's game last week, he's playing over Lithuania and then this BS JBL league or whatever it's called. So
that right there robbed him of his high school. Like I was saying before, is that where Matt Barnes may be missing the point here is that the experience, and he addressed the experience thing on his Twitter and saying that he just didn't need the experience. But what I'll say is the experience that Melo got from playing overseas against professionals, adults, a higher caliber of talent, has, to me, developed his game in a way that makes him a dynamic player and has him positioned that where even if he didn't play basketball at all for the next year, he'd still be in a position to get drafted. And I think that increasing his game and the skill set and all of the tools that he picked up came from being able to play basketball overseas. But what I also think that Matt Barnes is not realizing is it's so much doper to me to think about a day where I have a son. My son could play down at the local high school and play basketball in front of his friends and teachers and that little girl that he liked, or he could be in London playing in front of an arena full of folks. And obviously I'm not saying it was so loud or nothing, but an arena right there, representing a brand that represents his family, going to Russia and playing in a different country, getting better, playing basketball, doing the thing that he loves to do, the thing that he wants to be professional at. That to me is what's dope about what they did. Is if you want to be a professional basketball player, how do we increase your game and your chances of doing that? Playing high school basketball, being a McDonald's All-American, all of that shit is dope. It's cool. We've seen McDonald's All-Americans and guys who dominated in high school basketball, and like that be the end of their accomplishments. You're a cool high school American, you dominated high school basketball, but your game is still not ready for the NBA. We have not seen a ton of guys like LaMelo who foregoed a year or two of high school to then go play professionally in another country, then come back and dominate high school and then not dominate the NBA, because they're blazing a new path. The first person to ever have done it. So I think that's one thing that Matt Barnes is missing out when he's talking about this current situation.
To me, Lavar is very selfish. I think because he wasn't the athlete and he missed his window, he's vicariously living through his kids, and he wants it like this instead of, let me say crazy stuff to make people dislike my kids and draw attention. I think they had a great idea with.
I feel like that right there is always the thing when people say he's saying crazy stuff to make people dislike his kids. If you are listening to one person talk and say something and it makes you feel negatively about somebody totally different, then what that means is that you internally have some things that you got to work on inside yourself. If you're letting his actions affect you negatively, right? And also, it's the same shit. If you sign with Nike tomorrow, right? You're gonna go out and Nike gonna put a shirt on you, right? And they want you to do good because they want other folks to come back and buy Nike products. So yes, Nike may big up LeBron James, but they not gonna say LeBron James' name if Nike ain't gonna be right there behind it. So it's the same thing. If you have a brand and it's the Big Baller brand and you're the spokesperson of it, you are going to big up the brand. Now, I think that he missed the point where he said LaVar is not an athlete or missed his time and is living vicariously through his kids. I think that, to me, that's backwards. I feel like that's backwards because this is something that I went through at one point where after I left playing college football at Iowa State, I really didn't tell people too much about it because I always intended on being a professional football player. My dream was the NFL, and when I didn't get there, I was semi-ashamed about it, right? So people would say, "Oh, you went to college?" I said, "Yeah, I went to Iowa State." I wouldn't bring it up until people would then find out and be like, "Bro, I didn't know you played ball D1 at Iowa State. Why didn't you tell me?" And if so many folks were excited and like pumped up that I played football at Iowa State, and they talked about how much, man, I wish I could have done that. I think that because Matt Barnes has had a lengthy NBA career, very successful playing ball, he is missing the point that for regular folks, LaVar Ball's career is a dream for a lot of people. While he was playing only on the practice squad, and he addressed this in his Twitter as well, like there are folks who I know currently who would die for that chance to play on the practice squad. We look at guys who just played in this AAF and who are hoping that they can get a call and maybe get on the NFL practice squad. So this idea that his career wasn't what it was, so he's trying to live vicariously through his kids, I think that, to me, that is just somebody speaking from privilege.
I think they had a great idea with the brand overall, but then as soon as they came out with the price points, the whole thing started going downhill from there. You know, you had a chance to capture a unique audience with a reasonable price point, and they could have killed that market, but they put the price point too high, and after that move, everything's been downhill since. So
once again, I think that where Matt Barnes is mistaken at is that he thinks that the price point negatively affected the company. to me, that's all backwards, because you wouldn't have been talking about it if it was an $80 sneaker, which I think he mentioned also on his Twitter. If it was an $80 sneaker, nobody would care. If Matt Barnes came out with a sneaker tomorrow, it would not be covered the way that people covered the Big Baller Brand $495 sneaker. Now, what makes you coming out with your first sneaker at $495 smart is because obviously it generated a ton of attention. A lot of people were interested in it. But the second thing that it did for them was it allowed them to be able to lower the price, not have to raise the price. Because if you come out with an $80 sneaker and it's popping and everybody likes it, and then you try to hike the thing up to $200, the fans that you just acquired from buying your $80 sneaker, now you have really distanced yourself from them, right? But when you have a $495 sneaker and you have folks who want it, and then you say, you know what, actually we're gonna bring it down, now it's only $200, you can get it. That's a positive.
As a father of three sons, I hate the way he moves with his kids, because it's more about him than it is about the boys. And that's unfortunate.
That to me is just misguided, because if you spend 20 minutes talking to LaVar Ball, he's not talking about himself, he's talking about his boys. Here's the point that I want to make, right? And I think that what Matt Barnes misses and what the media misses is this moment that I had a long time ago with my son. All right, so my son is 8 years old now. He's about to be 9, right? So one of the things that we used to do when he was very young is we would watch Dragon Ball Z, right? Every morning before he went to daycare or went to kindergarten, we would watch an episode of Dragon Ball Z. Now, obviously, I know he was young, so I'm talking about young, like this is 3 or 4 years old young. We would watch an episode of Dragon Ball Z. It sounds crazy, but if you watch the Avengers or Spider-Man and all that, it's all, to me at the time, it all was in the same boat, right? But this is what happened. Every day we get up and watch it, and we watch from Dragon Ball Z all the way to GT. And what ended up happening is one weekend his homeboys came over, his friends or whatever from daycare, and they had a sleepover, and I was watching them play in the room, right? And my son was struggling a little bit because everybody is playing their superhero, right? So you got the kid who's Spider-Man, you got the kid who's Incredible Hulk, you have the kid who is Tony Stark, Iron Man. You got all of these folks who are impersonating their favorite characters and all of these things, right? My son, though, is a Goku, right? So as the kid is trying to hit him with the web, my son is moving hella fast because he just came back from being in like 30 times gravity, and this regular earth gravity is nothing to him, so he's too fast for webbing, all right? So as the kid is trying to Hulk smash, my son is hitting him with a Kamehameha and destroying all of that stuff. As Iron Man is trying to get Ultron and all this extra stuff, my son has a spirit bomb that he is destroying everything with, right? And I know, and hopefully you know if you've been watching Dragon Ball Z, that Goku would destroy all of these Marvel characters. But what was happening is that all of my son's friends couldn't understand it. And because they couldn't understand it, they were trying to make it seem like my son just was crazy and he didn't know what he was talking about. And it wasn't because he was crazy or he wasn't right or he wasn't the most powerful kid in that room. It was because they couldn't defeat what he was doing, right? And me as a dad, I was sitting there proud because I thought it was so dope that he was, you know what I'm saying, recalling all of this Dragon Ball Z mythology to his friends and educating them, but they couldn't understand it. So because of that, I began to introduce him into, you know, the Spider-Mans and the Avengers and all of this stuff. And it was crazy to me because there was this moment where obviously he wanted to get into that because his friends liked it and all that stuff, and I allowed it. But there was a moment where we were in the store one day and it was like a little Dragon Ball Z figurine. Years later, because in more recent years, it has returned to popularity with Dragon Ball Super and that show. There's a figurine there of Vegeta. And I was like, yo, you know who this is? And my son had no idea who Vegeta was. I was like, what about this? It was Piccolo. No idea who Piccolo was. And it really hit me because obviously when kids are young, they hit this age or this moment where they forget a ton of stuff. And I realized that he had hit that age, but it also realized that he had kind of lost his power, right? He lost the thing that made him different and made him superior to all of these other kids when they were trying to battle each other with their own superhero icons. And I feel like this is what we see a lot of people do with the Big Baller brand, right? Everybody knows that having your own brand and being the owner of your own company provides you with a better opportunity than it does to just be a sponsored athlete. But people don't understand how you're supposed to do that. So because of that, when you start bringing out a spirit bomb, they're telling you you crazy because you need to have web. It's your main man, AB the Hero. I'm out. Peace.